Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final panel of our virtual sales summit. This is Build It Smart, and they will convert lead generation strategies that work. I'm Tim Mullaney, the managing editor of Senior Housing News, and I will be moderating the discussion today. I'd first of all like to thank Conversion Logics for bringing us this session. With expertise specifically in the senior living space, Conversion Logics delivers a powerful combination of strategic campaign management, ad creative, lead generation software, and marketing attribution to provide your team with scalable and performance-driven digital marketing solutions. All right, before we get started, I just want to go over a couple of housekeeping items. So in terms of the format of today's session, I'm really pleased to be joined by two great panelists, and I'll be moderating a discussion with them about the topic at hand, followed by an audience Q&A. So at that point, if you'd like to ask a question, you can go ahead and do so using the Q&A function on your interface. And also please note that the webinar is being recorded and on-demand access will be available after its conclusion. It is now my great pleasure to introduce our speakers. Joining me today are Jen Lovely, Executive Vice President of Sales at Conversion Logics. Jen is a senior living marketing executive who pioneered Conversion Logics' senior living practice over 13 years ago. She's a trusted advisor to her clients, delivering qualified website traffic that accelerates leads, tours, and move-ins. And before joining the company, she spent 20 years in the hospitality sector as an executive in sales and marketing. And I'm also joined by John Greaves, owner and president of Next Step Sales Management. John's a seasoned senior living sales and marketing coach and an advocate for integrating operations with sales. He has experience working with companies in multiple industries to optimize performance in difficult selling environments. So we've got a lot to talk about. I'd like to jump right in. Jen, I think it'd be helpful if you could start out by maybe just telling us what sparked the idea for Conversion Logics to develop a lead generation software solution to begin with. I think you maybe have a story for us about that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tim. And John, thanks for joining me today. It's always fun. It's always fun doing webinars with you and visiting with you. So thanks for joining. Tim, a couple of the reasons that we actually developed the Conversion Cloud software, there's a few. So one of those is that there was some very lackluster lead strategies out there. A lot of people were just using these very long forms on their website, and they were hidden and that sort of thing. So, who wants to fill out a form that has 13 different line items? So we needed to make sure that we had something that was one touch, one step, very easy and very visible. It was also really important to meet prospects at every step of their journey. Not everybody wants to schedule a tour, right? And then there was also a very long generic prospect response time. They would maybe fill out this long form if they did fill it out, and then it would take a couple of days for someone to get back to them. And so they needed something that was, quicker response. And having something like live chat, they receive a response real time immediately. And that was very helpful in different scenarios, whether they just needed to, if they had an emergency type situation or had a situation, or they just had a short time frame where they needed to make some sort of decisions and, were very busy with work, like an adult child, for example. And then also there's always that difficulty in identifying those anonymous visitors on your website. And so now this was actually helping to unveil who are these people. Only a certain amount of people will actually fill out a website form. So this gave an opportunity for them to do other things besides filling out a long-winded, website form. And then a couple of other things I wanted to mention is, in the first few months after Conversion Cloud launched, we actually saw about a 65% increase in leads because people did have different touch points. It was an easy form. It was one touch, one click. So that's just something to think about. And since the inception of the Conversion Cloud, we've had over 1 million leads, which is just absolutely incredible. And we're excited for all of our clients and very proud to have actually helped our clients, partner with them and get to that point. Couple of things that I just want to bring up is I know a lot of people are concerned about real estate on their website and having too many conversion points. But I want everybody to just understand that there's different personalities out there and different people who are at different steps of their journey. So I just want to throw out a couple stats that might be kind of fun to know. So if you have 3 or more conversion points or Conversion Cloud applications, we were seeing an 18% lift in leads. With more than 3, we were seeing, just spotlight offers and that sort of thing, we were seeing a 25% increase. And with some sort of animation and customization with the different modules, we were seeing a 27% increase. So again, I think it's really important to just understand that there's different personalities, people are at different steps. Don't be afraid to have different conversion points and several conversion points.
Terrific. Thanks, Jen. I think that's great. Start to the conversation. John, would love to bring you in and get your first thoughts. If you can pick up the thread from Lindsay, I know that you're very aware that the engagement clock starts to tick once someone's contacted. So maybe you can share your thoughts on how folks can work under the pressure, under that time pressure most effectively.
Yeah, it's interesting for our clients. We're very, very aware of the number of people who come to the site, but who choose to not engage in a sales conversation yet. And they're looking for information. They're looking to pay off this, why did I come here? And, it's just super, super important for any of us to, be sure we're getting them what they're looking for as quickly and as helpfully as possible, and not hiding behind, bullet points on a brochure, but really getting to what they're looking for. So yeah, the Conversion Cloud, I think, is an interesting and effective way of engaging on their terms.
Terrific. So Jen, curious if you can share, are there particular lead generation strategies that Conversion Cloud users have found the most effective to generate quality leads?
Absolutely.
Well, yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Although John knows, so John can answer that question for me.
All yours.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of really great things. So one thing I want to talk about is events. Events are incredible to use. That's a great conversion point. And here's the reason. If I come in for a tour, someone's going to ask me, am I ready to deposit, right? They're going to be calling me 24 to 48 hours later, or whatever their cadence is. If I come in for an event, that's more of a kind of a soft conversion, gives me an opportunity to kind of come in, check things out, kind of roam about at my leisure possibly, right? So I think that's something that a lot of people dismiss as a really good way to actually get people in the door and help to convert. So events are really helpful, promotional offers, even downloading an e-brochure. And then something, we had our annual sales kickoff a little over a week ago, and we had a client panel, and we were all talking about the fact that people are looking at sometimes 7 to 10 senior living communities now instead of just 3. And so, the last 3 years, video tours have been really popular. And I think it's really important to have a really great video tour. It doesn't have to be extremely expensive, but just have someone from your property that has a really, really great presence and who's excited and can walk around and talk about a few things, and just have a video tour that's captivating enough so that when someone is actually just kind of going and shopping, that they can take a look at that quick tour and get an idea of a feel for your community. And then when they dwindle down from 7 to 10 down to those 2 they're actually going to go tour, they've got a pretty good idea of what they're looking at. So video tours are huge. Really you're just trying to target every personality out there. Another thing that we have found very, very helpful is just kind of a mini cost analysis. How many people don't understand the cost of senior living, right? They think it's more expensive than what they can afford, for example. And when you do a quick little mini cost analysis and go, oh, how much am I spending now on everything? So that's really helpful too. So just a wide variety of things. And when we have even just one of those touch points, we're seeing a 12% lead to lease conversion rate by using, those extra things. So that's really important. Also, live chat is huge. It can be anonymous, but it is a trust builder. And then something else too, a lot of people have been tentative about adding a chat bot because they say, it's not personalized. But a chat bot can actually deliver just quick answers if I just have, quick couple questions that I need answered. But then also what we're doing is, along with the chat bot, we are actually integrating it with human agents. So at any point in time, if you say, I'd like to have a live conversation, you can actually click on that and go to a live conversation that's more in depth. So I'd say don't dismiss a chatbot, because it can answer those simple questions, and maybe that's how people want to communicate. But it is great if you can actually integrate a live conversation tool along with it, so that people can actually chat with someone. And we are seeing a 70% chat to lead conversion rate, which is huge. And then 75% of customers expect help in 5 minutes or less, according to McKinsey research. So it's important to have different interactions that are real time and live and help people right now, like John was saying. They want someone to help right now. Scheduling tours, you can achieve a 25% tour to lease conversion rate with a confirmation conversation and lead nurturing. So lots of things you can do. I know that's a lot, but if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to have a sidebar conversation.
Terrific. Thanks, Jen. John, would love to get your thoughts on this topic of engagement strategies and best ways to maintain engagement.
Well, I think it's, from a strategic standpoint, it's just really important to remember that all of the copy we write on these websites is a guess. We hope that what we're writing connects with what they're looking for. When you have that chat feature, you get much, much more specific about, okay, you're here on our site. What do you want to know? Okay, here's the answer. And so you've upped the game in terms of your engagement with that individual prospect. You're no longer guessing what they want to know. You're responding to their direct question. And I think we're all aware, when you get to a site and you don't find it very helpful, you look for another one that is. So I think it's really important that we offer enough value back to someone to justify the fact that they clicked on us in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. Great points. So, Jen, I guess the next question I have for you is, can you speak to how companies can automatically pre-qualify leads and engage prospects?
Absolutely. I think it's really important to include some customizable questions. And let's talk about, a couple of things. Like, for example, if you have an opportunity for someone to schedule a tour, is there a quick survey that they can answer, like a pre-tour survey? Or are there just a few customizable questions like, what amenities are most important to you? What's your target move-in date? So a few things like that. And a few simple questions. If you get someone to engage, they're engaging, they're talking to you via tool. If they're at that point, they will answer a few questions. I think that, they've opted in, so they will answer those. And then also with the income calculator tool, I think it's really important to, and again, when I say income calculator tool, you're not looking to see necessarily, this isn't affordable housing, but what are people looking for? And, maybe can we upsell them, right? So I think it's important to ask some qualifying questions, such as, do you own or rent your home, right? Tell me a little bit more about activities that you're engaged with outside of your home. Things like, are you currently, getting help with, chores around your house? Like, just different specific questions like that can tell you a lot about what's going on in the situation. So I think it's important just to have those customized questions. And again, like, for example, we do have a pre-tour survey or just a generic survey tool, and don't be afraid to actually include something like that. A lot of people at this point in time are used to getting something like that pre-appointment, pre-tour. I think a lot of people are actually appreciative of it.
Terrific. Great. John, anything to add here?
Well, I think on the engagement side, we have to remember that people are engaging in this decision process, and it's their first time around. This isn't, in many cases, they haven't done this before. And so as providers, it's important for us to not just focus our websites on where to move, but also step back a little bit and consider, this person is wondering whether to move. They're wondering when to move. And if we can offer up engagement that scratches those curiosity itches, I think that becomes a much more engaging process for people. In senior living sales training, our focus is on, your guide to a good decision. You're not just simply there to fill out lease paperwork for your building. You're there to help them navigate a very complex question. And so I think we can reflect that attitude on our sites too.
Great. So I do want to move on to kind of lead follow-up, but maybe before we get too much further in the conversation, as I've been listening to the two of you, I do have maybe a question that I'm wondering if you can address related to chatbots specifically, because this is something that I think has been a hot button issue. I'm hearing a lot about it when I talk to our sources for stories. So I guess I'm curious if maybe you can elaborate a little bit on best practices for chatbots. I'm hearing some trepidation among providers about implementing chatbots to begin with, but then also some concerns about the best ways to go about it in terms of how to engage, at what point to engage with someone on the website with a chatbot, how to escalate from chatbot to a real person if that's necessary, some of those types of issues. Do either of you have thoughts you can share on maybe what some of the best practices are related to chatbots?
I'll jump in first here, Tim. Yeah, I'll jump in first here. So with chatbots, I think in senior living, I think you have to be careful. You want to stay high level, right? Answer those questions such as, maybe you have starting prices from, maybe you talk about amenities, maybe you talk about, can mom bring a pet, like that sort of thing, right? And I think it's really important to have a live chat, and something where you actually interject with a question saying, if you have further questions, or would like to know more about, pricing or, that sort of thing, please, click here to speak with a live agent, right? I think it's important to have those gentle reminders along the way so that people do understand that they aren't talking to a live person, right? And then I also think it's important, keep it high level, but I might be in my office, I might be at work, and I'm just trying to put the pieces together. So I might engage with a chatbot just to get a couple quick questions answered, high level. Do you have a 1-bedroom apartment available? Do you allow pets? Because if you don't allow pets, got to move on to the next one, right? That sort of thing. So those are my suggestions, but give multiple opportunities to convert to a live agent along the way. So interject that maybe every couple, 2 or 3 questions.
Great. John, any thoughts you'd have there?
Yeah, I completely agree. Avoid any situation where someone feels like they're caught in an infinite loop. If they feel like they can't get out of this cycle, I mean, we've seen that on phone systems too. You make sure you have plenty of exit ramps because yes, 80% of the questions that get asked, you can anticipate. However, nobody wants to feel like they've been locked into a box. So being sure you can exit the chat and go to someone who can really be helpful, even if it's, with a phone call, but we just don't want to capture them and have them feel like they're in a cycle that they can't get out of.
Where they're going operator, 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 operator.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
We've all been there, unfortunately.
Yes, yes, don't do that.
Yeah. All right, great. So moving on to following up on leads, I think we all know it's really key to keeping prospects engaged, but also can be very time consuming. So Jen, maybe you can start us off with some smart strategies if you can share to automate lead follow-up.
Absolutely. And like you mentioned, Tim, lead nurturing can be very expensive if you're doing this manually, right? This is a whole nother body at your community. And a lot of us are, having a tough time just finding enough bodies or the correct bodies. So there's some different things that you can do to nurture your leads along the way. And by the way, this is important because if you're going to originally capture them, you want to keep them in your communications. You don't want them to go to your competitor. So, a couple of things is just, activate automated sequenced emails and automated SMS messages. That is something that you can do based upon if they do this, then they get this. If they do this, then they get this. That does keep people engaged. And we've all been in that situation where you look at something and then you get an email, right? Maybe giving a little more information. So that's something that I think is really important. It's pretty easy to do. And for example, we have clients that are really great at it and they want to set their own up. We have other clients that say, I don't know how to do this. Can you help me set it up? And we do that. So, but I think that's probably one of the easiest things that you can do. And we see a 44% increase in scheduled tours with lead nurturing automated sequenced email campaigns. So if you integrate those in, there's that 44% increase. So, somebody who watches a video tour or fills out, do I qualify button, if we're staying in front of them, eventually they will schedule a tour. And then also retargeting ads. That's something that's really simple that you can do. Okay. If we've all looked at, a new pair of running shoes, or if we're looking at, you're doing your online grocery shopping and then you start getting ads, right? It's just that simple reminder. Hey, I've got to add this to my list, or, oh, that's kind of a cool new pair of shoes, right? So it keeps people engaged. And I think through the senior living process, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but whether you're looking at, 55 plus active adult, which is a longer cycle, right? So you've really got to do that lead nurturing. But even through IL and AL, there's still that lead nurturing process. So if I'm the prospect, whether I'm the adult child or the resident myself, if I'm getting those retargeting ads, that's a simple reminder. Super simple. That can be done in the background with nice, call to action. That's an easy thing you can do. And then website automations can be triggered based on website interactions. So maybe downloading a guide or filling out a form, or resource interactions, like, here's some cool resources for you as you're, going through your journey. So those are some, kind of some fun ideas. And I think it's really important to customize your questions to learn where they are in their journey. So as they're filling out a form, customize those questions, learn where they're at in their journey so that you do know what email sequences and that sort of thing to put them into. Does that make sense, Tim?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I think those are great examples. And John, I'd love to get your thoughts on.
Yeah, people want to know you care. And I think that you're building trust as these different ads are going out, retargeting ads, or these emails, or, hey, download this, brochure. This will give you some more information, that sort of thing.
For sure. And I think it fits into this overall trend in senior living, right? Of everyone wants more personalization. When they're living in community, certainly they're going to want that in the selling process as well, and to feel like that's what they're getting on their end. So, John, would love to get your thoughts on this. I know that you have thoughts and some tips you can share on preferences, et cetera.
Yeah, I have lots of thoughts on this. We have we have this marketing effort, and in some ways, what we're inserting here is technology that starts to simulate a sale. And that sale defined as simply these are conversations to determine if it makes sense to work together. What we're really working with the teams that we train is you're not going to get a yes in many, many cases with this initial interaction. You're going to get a maybe. And so what we're looking for from a behavioral standpoint, from a team standpoint, how do I extract some value out of this investment we've made to get the click or to get to the lead? Even if I'm not going to get a yes, I can still get value from this, even if I just know what their preferences are for reconnection at a future date. Do you prefer to be texted? Do you prefer to get a phone call? Are there times and dates that work better for you? We're encouraging our teams to record that information in the CRM, because sooner or later they're going to be doing a database style and they want to have as high a connection rate as possible. So if we have those preferences, then we have a higher connection rate later. Then it might be a year down the road that we reconnect. We also, of course, know you've got to be there quickly. There are players in our field on the aggregator side who would be delighted if someone clicked on your site, didn't get an immediate response, and clicked on theirs instead. That's a very, very expensive thing to have happen. And so you want to make sure, are we doing everything we can in order to get that connection going? Even if it's automated, at least it kept them from doing a click elsewhere. So yeah, those are those kinds of practices you want to ask yourself as leaders. Are we getting this connection into the hands of someone who can be helpful as quickly as possible. And ideally, it's someone who can engage and get something scheduled. So you've activated that prospect instead of just having them float out there in nurture space. So yes, those are my thoughts.
Great. I really like what you had to say about, not extracting the value in terms of learning future preferences for communication, things like that. I think that just reminds me that we've done stories on Senior Housing News where we do things like mystery shops, and it's pretty remarkable how little interest sometimes the sales professional we talk to seems to have in what type of conversation we're interested in having when we call. And we're kind of working at cross purposes then, right? So let's move on to Jen. If you can talk about what are some smart ways communities can use technology to track conversions and improve campaign performance?
I think it's really important to understand attribution, Tim, and understanding the lead journey and having some sort of journey visualizer. So just so that everybody understands, a journey visualizer will actually give information on how many touches it took, what somebody clicked on and what they clicked on next, et cetera. Did it take 7 touches or 3 touches? What are they engaging with, right? So for example, I think it's really important for them to have access to this information. So I know that the prospect, it took 7 touches before they actually finally filled out a form. I might know at that point that, oh wow, this person they're being very thoughtful, right? This is a process. I might assume that they're not in a huge hurry or that they're a very thoughtful person. So like the two of you just spoke about, you maybe approach them a little bit differently. Maybe I slow down, when I talk and that sort of thing. If you see that someone comes in through one strategy, they convert immediately, and not just on one thing, but on 4 things, they might be me. And I'm joking, but I'm a quick decision maker, right? And so when, if I fill something out and if someone calls me and they're going through 19 other things, they've lost me at hello, right? So the thing is it's nice if you see that they come in once, they're converting, they've got a decision to make. So having those lead journey visualizers to see really what's going on is extremely helpful. And then also having, something like that too, and being able to look at attribution is helpful, because what you're able to do is look at all of your strategies and actually pivot immediately and say, okay, my display ads and retargeting ads and social ads seem to be working better than this, or my YouTube ads are converting, so that you can actually pivot and adjust immediately instead of waiting until 4 or 6 weeks later and going, gosh, things seem to be a little slow, right? So there's, so many more searches online, and we've got to know how these are all working together, what's working, what's not working, and then we need to understand the prospect and their journey and how they are converting. Are they converting quickly? Are they converting slowly? What are they converting with? And just to kind of give you some stats here, I know I'm throwing out a lot of stats, but when you add, some retargeting to your campaign, for example, so serving ads to people who have previously visited your website or interacted with your content, you see a 104% increase in leads with paid social and display retargeting campaigns. That's huge. So being able to see what's working there is very important. And also you see a 7% increase in least occupancy with paid search, paid social, and display. So maybe seeing how different strategies are working together is extremely important too. So being able to see attribution, being able to see the least journey, those are very important. And again, you've got to have some sort of tool that allows you to have some insight into this. If you don't, you're going to be lost. You're not going to know what's going on.
Great. John, I think you brought up lead aggregators earlier. I think when we talk about this issue of tracking conversions and improving campaign performance, you have some further thoughts there, which I'm sure our listeners would be interested to hear, given this is always a hot topic.
Well, it is a hot topic, and the stakes are high. At the end of the day, the stakes are very, very high. And so what I would just remind any of you, your website itself has to compete and has to stack up well, but you also want to ask yourself, either via search or in any other way, what about the search result information? So someone searches for, assisted living or independent living or active adult in your area. It's a pretty good idea, I think, to get an incognito mode, do that search yourself, and see how your search result page stacks up against the competitors. There's an interesting bit of data around an aggregator offering starting at pricing where the provider themselves did not, and the aggregator was pulling more clicks just because that starting at pricing was in the search results itself. Someone was looking for information, they offered it up, the provider didn't, and so the aggregator was getting the clicks. So pay attention to how you're stacking up against your competition, and your competition is not necessarily other senior living communities. Your competition is someone who's trying to get in between you and your prospects.
That's a really great point, John.
Yeah, agreed. And like I said, I know that providers are so frustrated often, right, with the role of lead aggregators and their ability to compete. So I think that'll be really well taken. All right, so I'd love to be able to address some of the audience questions at this point. Just a reminder to anyone listening that you can submit questions using the Q&A function. And Jen, you brought up independent living and active adult, the magic words earlier in our conversation, and we certainly do have a question about active adult, unsurprisingly, given how fast that part of the market's growing. So can you speak to how to advertise and treat active adult leads differently, maybe than the traditional senior living lead?
Absolutely. In fact, funny, I was with two of my favorite people, two of my clients, Allison and Jason, last week. And they have a brand new active adult community opening in late April in Scottsdale. And we were having so many conversations around this about folks still thinking that 55 plus are going to move into active adult. And we were all kind of laughing about the fact that we all qualify or almost qualify to move in, but that's not who's actually moving in. So I think it's really important to understand who that audience is before you just assume that 55-year-olds are going to want to move into active adult. Also, I think it's really important as well. We were talking about some different things with active adult. The actual setup of the apartment is really important, believe it or not, right? It's all about aesthetics and whatnot. So that's something to think about. Another thing is that when you're actually working on your strategies in your digital advertising, I think it's important to throw some things in like, are you ready to downsize? Because really that's what this is about, right? Active adult, tired of cooking, tired of yard work, don't want the maintenance. So I think it's really important to actually include some of that downsizing perspective. And then in addition to it, maybe give some different options. This isn't, you're not using senior living keywords, for example. You might be saying, senior townhomes, senior communities, or 55 plus, active adult communities, that sort of thing. People who are looking for active adult, they don't want to live someplace where someone is using a walker, right? So they don't, a senior living community is not where they want to live. They're just looking for fun, active adult. If they're looking at condos or neighborhoods, they might see your building and go, oh, that's a really cool option. Another thing is to really focus on amenities. That's what people are looking for. They really want to know, like, hey, I've got restaurants there, I've got a bar there. Do they have pickleball? Do they have, fun, game nights? Do they have happy hour? Things like that. So again, sit down and think about it and go, would I move in, right? And is that what I'm looking for? People are trying to stay active and, not get old before their time. So those are just some things that I suggest. And it's funny because we were all, really just literally talking about this last week And again, active adult, we're talking, their audience was more like 68 to 75, 68 was the youngest. So John, what's your thought?
Well, I was reflecting on my grandparent counterpart. My daughter's in-laws recently chose active adult, and they're not as old as 68, but really driving their decision on where they chose to live had to do with how attractive is this going to be for our grandkids to visit? What are the guest amenities? What are the things that would make my family want to come and join us down here on the Alabama Gulf Coast? And so, they're excited about what this community offers that allows them to gather family to them. And I think that's something really important. They're less worked up about their in-apartment amenities. Of course, that's a lovely place, but they're really excited about the fact that kids will come and be excited to come.
That's a really interesting point.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. To stay on this topic, we have another question on active adult. Jen, you mentioned just the kind of lead time being longer for active adults, and wondering, I don't know if you have data on this, but can you share anything on expectations that folks might have for how long it takes to sort of the whole sales cycle on active adult versus, say, IL, and any strategies for driving faster sales in the active adult space?
I would say I'll comment on this, and then I know John's got actually a lot of raw data from lead to conversion, because he's looking at the forecasting all the time. Active adult, sometimes you're looking up to 2 or 3 years. IL, you're looking up to a year, and people have to sell their homes. They have to downsize. Sometimes people have lived in the same house for 35 years, for God's sake, right? It's a big job. It's very overwhelming. So some of the things that I think are important is to actually work with a partner who can help them with that downsizing. So maybe have some sort of a conversion point that says, meet with a downsizing specialist, or do you need a realtor or something like that? And I think that if these communities and these companies have partners who can help with downsizing, help with listing their home, help with the downsizing, all that sort of thing, that is going to help the community to get people in faster. Because a lot of people, they get stuck. Like I said, it's overwhelming. You're like, got to clean out the house, got to find a realtor, got to do this, got to do that. And so if you have things that are already lined up for them to help them through that, consultative wise, that's a huge win.
Right. John?
I completely agree.
Jen put you on the spot. You have the data?
So I'm not going to throw percentages at you, but what I will say is, if they see your sales counselor at an active adult community as the person to sign out the lease paperwork, then that's about as much engagement as you're going to get. If instead that sales counselor is there to guide you through a long-term project that has milestones and steps, and they have a part to play in the project, you're much, much more likely to capture them early in the process and stay engaged through the process, rather than just hoping they show up after they've done all the hard work at the end and choose you. So I think the important thing to remember is we're engaging with you early, but we're also engaging with you along the way. And as Jen said, we're bringing resources to you as needed. Now, active adult prospects are more resourceful than someone who's perhaps, moving into an assisted living because they've had a health crisis. So they won't need everything. But when you are there to say, no, whatever you need, we have the ability to work with you and guide you along the way, that's going to give you more than your share of those that are up for grabs. You're going to get the bluebirds, the ones that are going to come anyway. The real success is the ones that could have gone somewhere else, but they chose you because of the way you engaged.
And I think this is where events really come into play too, because when people are active adult, they want to know that they're going someplace where they like the people. These are people. Do we want to hang out with them? Right?
Yeah.
My husband and I will do that. We're like, okay, let's go check this out. Are these our people or are they not our people? Right. And so I think just really like, hey, make sure you've got events out there that people can actually come to and engage with people and see, these are going to be my neighbors, or these are people I want to hang out with, during my free time, since there's so many amenities here. I think that's extremely important to do that. And then just recently too, I saw something and I was like, that's really cool. Talking about, AI and some cool things. They'll actually come into your house, look at your furniture, do some sort of a scan, then whatever floor plan you're looking at, they'll take your furniture you currently have, plop it into the floor plan, show you what it would look like if we took this furniture and moved it over here. So let's put, stickers on all the ones you're going to take and move into your apartment, and the rest of it, get rid of it, right? So just having, different tools like that, where you can help people out, like we've all been talking about, is huge.
Yeah, your point about events has gotten my wheels turning. So I think to John's point earlier about having amenities that appeal to the grandkids or the kids, I'm just thinking, if my own parents were living in an active adult community that had ready-made pickleball, every time we visited, and lots of people to play against, and a good community there, that would be a huge selling point, I think, for me to tell my parents, move there.
And I think it's important too to get constant feedback from your residents. I think that's something, get feedback from your employees, get feedback from your residents. Do you really have what people are looking for? A lot of times, again, we assume. So ask them, do you like what we have? Ask your current residents. I think it's as important to engage with future prospects as it is with your own residents, to make sure that, you've got what they're looking for and keeping them happy.
Terrific.
And for Pete's sake, make sure you've got community-wide free Wi-Fi. Don't skimp on the Wi-Fi.
Yeah. It's so painful that still has to be spoken out loud in 2024, but I think everyone who's in senior living can't say it enough. All right. Next question we have here is, let's see, we want to automate more tasks in our daily routine, but don't know where to begin. What are the best starting points for getting the most value? I guess, John, I think I'm going to Jen for most questions first. So maybe can you tackle this one first?
So, from my perspective, anything that happens off hours, if it's going to really put a burden on your team to be doing it off hours, see what you can do to automate those functions, and then you'll get spillover during the workday too. But if you can speed up the flow of information to the people who need it, those are the things that you really want to make sure you do. The other thing that I think when we were talking about this ahead of time, things that you can do that preserve sales hours. Sales hours are incredibly valuable, and if you are working with a team and they're spending a lot of time catching up on paperwork or catching up on reports, and they're, instead of scheduling conversations with their prospects, it's a very expensive decision from a management standpoint. So carefully consider, when you're looking at what you can automate, does it free up a sales hour? Does it free up my sales counselor to have a conversation with prospects? Because that's where they're at their highest and best use.
Terrific. Jen?
Yeah, and I love that too. That's what I was going to mention. Look at all of the mundane tasks that you're performing in order to keep in touch with prospects, and what is taking up the most time, and what does that cost, right? And should the salesperson be doing something different, like actually conducting a tour? Some really easy things you can do, like I mentioned before, putting a retargeting campaign in place. Simple retargeting ads. That's really, really easy. You don't have to do a thing. The only thing you have to do is approve an ad set, right? That's easy. And then, the sequenced emails and text messages and things like that, those are also fairly easy to set up and can help out tremendously. Another thing too is that on whatever modules or any forms or anything you're doing, make sure that you're asking a couple of specialized questions. And I know that just seems like, a little bit simple, but just gathering a couple pieces of information while they already are engaged can get you to the next level. And then my one thing that's part of, that's part of automation too, is actually having different conversion points at every step of the journey. So just make sure, that if someone has actually engaged in one aspect, that they have another next step that they can engage in themselves. So those are some easy things, but really take a look at what are you doing that's taking the most time to stay in touch with prospects, and then go from there.
Okay. Well, this is a really fantastic discussion. I think we'll end here. If you are an audience member and you submitted a question, we didn't get to it, I apologize, but I know that Jen and John would be happy to follow up individually. So I want to thank the audience for tuning in, and John and Jen, I think I certainly gleaned a lot from this discussion, and want to thank you so much for your insights.
Anytime.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks for having us. Thanks for hosting. And John, it was great to see you today.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Jen.
All right. Have a good afternoon.
Have
everyone.
a great week.